Cambridge defines the word deserve as to have earned or to be given something because of the way you've behaved or the qualities you have. I studied for days, so I deserve an A on the test. I've worked as hard as I can. I deserve a promotion. I never missed a day of training. I deserve to set a marathon PR. It's easy to slip into these mindsets of I deserve this, I deserve that, because I worked this hard, I gave it my best effort. But in reality, the deserving mindset doesn't help you at all. We often fall into something called the trap of the deserving, where this little voice in the back of our head is constantly telling us, I deserve to be happier, I deserve a relationship, I deserve a promotion, a raise, whatever it may be. But really, the uncomfortable truth is deserving is just a mental framework that we put on ourselves. The universe certainly does not run on deserves. We see that all the time. If this were the case, then hardworking, good people would always be at the top, and lazy, bad-natured people would never be successful. But I'm sure there are a bunch of cases that you can point to in your own life where you've been passed up for something where the other person didn't work as hard or they weren't as worthy. They didn't deserve it as much as you. So I think this trap of deserving that we fall into, it leads us to feel resentment, to feel cynical, to feel frustrated because we know we gave our best effort. We felt like we deserved X, Y, and Z, but we didn't get it. And I think this is where a lot of people fall into problems. This is where that cynicism comes from. But the reality is you can study really hard and you can still fail the test. You can meet all your quotas and someone else will get the raise. You can train for months and still miss that marathon time goal. So taking I deserve out of our vocabulary is important if we want to stick to the process and progress. The Stoics knew this over 2,000 years ago. You read the writings of Epictetus, you read Marcus Aurelius, you read Seneca. A lot of what they talk about is just going to work, doing what you do regardless of the results. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, book 6, just do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. And I think this is important for us to grasp, especially, people who are ambitious and are chasing things that really want to progress in the world. You feel like you're putting in the work. You feel like you're stacking days, and maybe things aren't happening for you, and you're not getting to where you want to go. But the problem is that you believe there is an end. You believe that you deserve something because of what you did. But life isn't an equation. It's not an A plus B equals C equation. It's not if you do this, then this will come and you will get this. Everything you're doing, that is life in and of itself. You're tying yourselves to results when you say, I deserve this, because you're saying, if I don't have this, I feel less than, I feel frustrated. I feel, cynicism, things of that nature. This, entitlement of deserving something, it creates an attachment to results, to recognition from others, and to fairness in the world, which we know just really isn't the case. And, I think recognition is key. And this is something that I struggle with myself. But you want to make, me writing, me making videos, I want to make things that people like to consume, that get views, that get clicked, that get liked. But if I make something and I like it myself and, I feel good about it, then what does it really matter about, what comes after? We're always looking to, outside forces to tell us that, hey, you did good enough job, so you get this raise. You did a good enough job, so you get an A on the test. But in reality, when you believe you deserve something, you're handing over your emotional control. Your sense of worth becomes dependent on certain outcomes, often outcomes that are dictated by other people or just happenstance. And I think it's important to not let your peace be dictated by things going your way. Life is life. Things, quote unquote, maybe won't go your way, but you don't even have to view it in that sense. It's just another chapter in the story. I think it's important to note that undoubtedly, if you study more, you're more likely to get an A. Or if you train more, you're more likely to set that marathon PR. If you work harder, you're more likely to get a promotion. But the belief in that guaranteed outcome is the root of disappointment. And I'm not saying you should shy away from disappointment at all. I'm just saying that these outcomes that often are reliant on other people or arbitrary lines, they should be completely thrown out. This is where you really lean into the process, and what you're trying to do. There was the late 16th French philosopher, I wrote this earlier this week, gonna butcher his name, Michael de Montaigne. He wrote, "A man is not hurt so much by what happens as by his opinion of what happens. And our opinion of what happens is entirely up to us." If you take a second, think that a man is not hurt so much by what happens as by his opinion of what happens. And our opinion of what happens is entirely up to us. Everything that happens to us, we get to decide how we react. Someone punches you in the face, you get to decide how you react. It doesn't always have to be a negative reaction. And so when you are leaning into that I deserve mindset, when you get let down, that's an opinion. That is your opinion that you deserve something. And then that is your opinion now and your feeling that you've been let down, the feeling of frustration. You look to Epictetus, I mentioned the Stoics earlier. All throughout his writings, some things are in our control. Some things are in our control, others are not. A lot of these things we feel like we deserve are not in our control. Therefore, what stakes should we put in those? That's why you really have to lean on what you can control and what you can do. And, the chips may fall where the chips may fall. If you give an earnest, honest effort and things don't go your way because of outside uncontrollables, so be it. You have to take solace in that fact because your belief that a certain process is going to deliver certain results is where you encounter these pitfalls. And it's where the highs become very high and the lows become very low because you're relying on outside, an external motivation to really get up and do things. But when you stop believing you deserve anything at all, you aren't shaken by what you don't receive. When I post this video, it's not that I'm undeserving of getting views. It's not that I think I deserve to get views. But completely disassociating with that means that whatever happens does not matter. You end up acting freely without expectation, which removes the burden of anything you're trying to do. And typically when you act without expectation is when you produce your best work, is when you become your best self, is when you lean in to really who you are. As I mentioned again, hard work will keep you in the game. The more chances, the more bites of the apple you have, the more likely you are to quote unquote get what you deserve. But in reality, we just need to completely delete that framework of deserving because it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't free you up. So I think going forward, I'm trying to implement this in my life, but try to replace deserve with feeling inside that you've done what's needed to be done. And, it's out of your hands. You can't do anything else. You gave it an earnest, honest effort. You gave it your best effort. You're grateful for an opportunity. But whatever comes next, because likely you aren't the power player in the situation, it doesn't really matter, and if you quote unquote don't get what you deserve, you pick it back up and you give another earnest, honest effort because the world doesn't run on what's deserved. If it did, then there wouldn't be the suffering we see to good people, and bad people wouldn't rise up. So stop chasing what you think you deserve and instead do what your heart desires and what you believe you can create. Because really when you stop believing the world owes you something, that's when you really can start living and truly live your best life and produce the best output and really focus and lean into what you want to lean into. So appreciate you tuning into this video, and just remember, you don't deserve anything. It doesn't mean you're undeserving, but remove that burden, and it's helped me out tremendously, and I hope it'll help you all out as well.